Man, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. We're going to be talking about another phone that's pretty dear to my heart, and the reason being is because a little special someone that I know really wants this phone, really is curious about it. You know who that special someone is? That little special someone is you, okay? If you're watching this video, just know I appreciate you, I love you, and I just want you guys to know that. But the iPhone 8 is a pretty crazy phone, okay? I've owned this phone since I think September. I think I installed iOS 12 on it the first day, so I've owned it for a couple months, but I also bought it the first day it came out. And let me tell you, the first day it came out in 2017, I was pretty surprised because I was like, you know what, this phone is pretty crazy. Glass on the back, wireless charging, this was pretty insane. But really deep down, I wanted the iPhone 10, but at the time it was super expensive and I couldn't afford it. But luckily, the iPhone 10 came out like 2 months after, like a month after the iPhone 8. So then I bought the iPhone 8 for like a week, returned it, and then bought the iPhone 10, and then I returned that. But then I bought another one, then I had sold that, and then I bought another one, and then I had a green light, whatever. You guys get the gist. But before looking forward, I kind of want to take a step back and talk about everything that's changed pretty much with the iPhone 8. There was a lot that changed actually, and it all pretty much stemmed from June. In June, that's when we got the new iOS released, and iOS 11 really wasn't too awesome. I think we all know that. It wasn't that great. There were a lot of bugs with it, a lot of glitches. The iPhone 8, from what I recall, wasn't too crazy. Like I said, I didn't own it at the time in iOS 11, but I did read a lot about it on the Reddit forums and everything, and people weren't necessarily complaining just about the iPhone 8. They were complaining about all the iPhones, about the iOS 11, so really I can't really dig too deep on that aspect on just this phone, but you know what, it is what it is. Now in June, like I stated, iOS 12 did come out, and that was a pretty crazy big update in terms of just the features and the bug fixes themselves. There weren't really that many features added though. There was just group FaceTime, which is pretty cool, don't get me wrong. I would rather have group FaceTime than not have it at all. But we also got group notifications, which was super cool. Pretty much it was just group notifications based on the app. I think you've all seen it by now. And since then, we're still on iOS 12, so we don't really know what the future entails, but I'm pretty sure iOS 13 is going to bring a pretty big redesign, but we'll talk about more of that in a minute. And you know what? In September, we also saw the new iPhones released, and the pricing of the iPhone 8 dropped down a little bit, and so did the iPhone 8 Plus, because the XR, XS, and XS Max pretty much took those most expensive spots. But then Apple went ahead and actually stopped selling the iPhone 10, which was pretty crazy, kind of an important step for them to do, but they also didn't need to do it if you really thought about it. So that pretty much brings us up to today and pretty much the future of iPhone 8, and just looking at it and seeing what the future entails of it. So looking around, obviously it looks pretty familiar. If you've never seen an iPhone before, then I don't know what you've been doing the rest of your basically your entire life. Looking at the front, we do have a 4.7 inch screen. It is 720p, okay? It's not the craziest thing in the world. I think the iPhone 10 and the iPhone 8 are almost in the same boat. They do have True Tone, both of them, so that's definitely a plus. The iPhone 8's screen definitely, in my opinion, is better. This is not a comparison though. It's not OLED, I really kind of wish it was, but I do understand their choice here because they already had those parts and it was just, I guess, cheaper for them to manufacture, so it is what it is. We also have the home button on the bottom with Touch ID 2. Again, this home button is a vibration motor. It's not like a full-on clicky button, but I'm not too salty about it. I don't really care. I would rather have a clicky button than a vibration motor because those are much easier to fix. But again, if you're not planning on fixing your phone, that's not a big deal. Like I said, there's glass on the back. You'll obviously have a front camera and a back camera, all those things. No headphone jack either. A big thing with the iPhone 8 though is that it is IP67 dust and water resistant, but a lot of phones now are actually still not even having any water resistance, so that's pretty crazy. Thankfully, the iPhone 8 does have that functionality, so that's definitely a dope thing. Now, another dope thing with the screen is that it does have Force Touch, and that is something Apple can never take away from you. Even if Apple in the future does plan on taking those things away in their future phones, the iPhone 8 will always have it, so don't even worry about it. Now, turning it on, like I said, we do have iOS 12 on it right now, and I think it runs pretty well. I've pretty much been keeping up to date with iOS 12 on it. I've done almost every single update on it. Well, I've done every single update, but just haven't made reviews on them. And I can tell you that yes, the stability overall is getting better and better, but there's still some crucial bugs, and Apple's really taking their time with iOS 12. I think they're really hounding down iOS 13 and making that as good as they can make it. So then iOS 12, they're kind of taking their time with it, which is a good thing and a bad thing, but really the future ability of this phone, this phone is going to last much longer than 2019. If I had to put a number on it, I would assume it's going to stop at somewhere around iOS 15 because the iPhone 7 is supposed to stop at iOS 14, so it should last one more year longer than that. So I'm assuming at least at the minimum iOS 15. It could go one more iOS version more, who knows, but at this time iOS 15 is when it's going to stop. So this phone isn't even like halfway through its life cycle in terms of software. Now in hardware, that's another case we'll look into in a second, but in terms of software and those security risks and everything like that, you will be pretty much protected, and the features and everything for the next several years, so don't even worry about that. Now, in terms of the hardware itself, like I stated, it does have the Apple A11 Bionic chip. It has a hexa-core CPU and it has 2 gigs of RAM. Okay, so what do those specs mean? Pretty much for my usage and me using it as much as I do and extensively testing it with the software, I can tell you that the performance on this phone is definitely still on the better side of things. It's not slow. It's not getting slower or anything like that. I know a lot of people think like after a year of owning a phone, they're like, oh my God, this phone is so slow now. I don't even know. I need to go get a new one. But in reality, if you take good care of your phone, you don't have like huge apps that take up tons of space like Facebook and have a bunch of apps running in the background, this phone it will be blazing. I mean, really the only problem I see here is probably the RAM. Like I always say, as long as you have like 2 gigs of RAM on an iPhone, you're pretty much set. I'm surprised the iPhone 8 had 2 gigs considering the 6S from 2 years prior had that amount. They should have at least upped that to 3 considering the 7 Plus had 3 gigs too, but then they would have matched that with the 8 Plus and the 10 and then people probably wouldn't have upgraded. So I kind of see that from a business sense. So, but in terms of performance, closing apps, multitasking, switching from one thing to another, browsing on the internet, multitasking, whatever the case is, I always say multitasking, but just take that as the gist of overall performance. I can tell you that even if your performance is a little bit heavy, you're not going to see any like performance drops. That probably has a lot to do with the Apple A11 Bionic chip as well. So really, you're not going to see a humongous difference, even if you go to like an iPhone XS Max or iPhone XS, which I've compared to and I've done speed comparisons with. And I can tell you that yes, the iPhone XS is faster. Yes, probably even the iPhone XR was faster. But as a whole, if you're talking about how much you're spending on this phone, if you're talking about just the overall package, price per value, you're probably getting a better dollar per value investment, I guess, onto an iPhone 8 than an iPhone X or an iPhone XS. And that's just kind of my opinion and just my usage of it. And even in gaming and everything, I mean, casual games run perfectly fine as usual. Heavier games run amazing as well. I personally like a bigger phone, so that might be why like I'm not too hyped about this, but that might be why like I always kind of overlook the smaller phones. But really, that's no knock to the iPhone 8. The performance on this is still very, very good as long as you're not comparing it side by side where you're like, oh man, the iPhone XS Max has 4 gigs of RAM. Or you're not going to care too much, honestly. Like the performance of this thing is still very, very good. Now switching to the camera, it does have a single camera sensor on the back. It's 12 megapixels and I think it's pretty decent still. You can shoot 4K videos at 60 frames per second. And you know what? It might not have portrait mode. It might not have like studio lighting. It might not have like the telephoto lens, but it does have the opportunity to take photos very, very good no matter in what conditions you are. Obviously, if you're in like night conditions, it's not going to look good regardless. Or like just a completely dark scenery. But what I can tell you is the cameras on these phones, I would say even past the iPhone 6S are definitely good and great on the better side of things. Is the iPhone 8 camera a 10 out of 10? No, it's not. It's probably like an 8 out of 10. Even if like the iPhone XS Max was like a 10 out of 10, this would still be honestly like 8.5. You're not going to be missing out on too much besides the software features in and of itself. So that's probably where you're going to be lacking at the most. You're going to be noticing that the newer phones and the bigger phones like the XS Max, the iPhone 8 Plus, those phones are able to do things that the iPhone 8 cannot do, like the portrait mode and things like I've stated earlier. That's maybe where you're going to be missing out on the most. But really in terms of everything, the camera is still very, very good. You're really not going to have any problems. And as long as you don't look at those bigger phones like, man, I wish I had that, you're not going to care. The front camera is 7 megapixels. And I'll tell you, both these cameras on this phone, the front and the back one, hold up very, very well. And you're really going to be surprised if you're coming from like an iPhone 5S or an iPhone 6 or like a Galaxy S4 or an LG G3. You're going to be surprised by how good this camera is. Now switching to the battery life, this is another one of those things where I find kind of in the middle, okay? This is a phone that I've extensively tested. I don't extensively test every single phone I get, but the iPhone 8 is one, especially with the iPhones because I always install the software. The iPhone 8 is a pretty interesting one because on usage, it's not the most amazing battery life. I mean, definitely the iPhone 8 Plus has better battery life. The iPhone XR has amazing battery life. I think even my iPhone X has overall better battery life than this thing on usage. But standby time, I definitely think the iPhone 8 has pretty good standby time. So the battery size is 1,821 milliamp hours. I can definitely tell you that the size in this case does matter a little bit, but I just find myself, like out of all the iPhones that I have, the iPhone SE is probably the only one that outlasts it. It usually outlasts all the other iPhones in standby time because I charge them all the time, all the same. And then like a couple of days later, I'll just pick randomly like one of them up and just seeing which one's still alive so that I can make a video about it or something. And the iPhone 8 is always one of those phones that lasts the longest. So I think in standby time, it's pretty good. Even in usage, it's decent. But if you're a heavier user, you will definitely be charging this thing by the end of the day. So what I can tell you is the battery life, probably like a 7 out of 10. I wish it was better. I wish it was bigger. But it's not that big of a deal as long as you buy a charger. This thing also has wireless charging. So that's a pretty important thing to note. And some other notable things to note, like I said, the home button on the front, there's no Face ID or anything, which I kind of like the Touch ID more than Face ID. There is IP67 dust and water resistance, no headphone jack like I stated. The front-facing earpiece up top is actually a speaker, so that's kind of cool for a lot of people who don't have a newer iPhone. That is one thing to note. I actually like that a lot. It's almost like a stereo speaker effect. And another quick important thing to note, and I've stated this with the iPhone 7 video as well, if you're planning on getting this phone to repair the screen or anything like that, the repairability of this phone, I would rate it very, very mediocre, because there's glass on the back, glass on the front, obviously glass on the front. If you crack the glass on the back, most likely you will have to go through a long procedure to fix it yourself. You'll most likely have to take it into Apple and spend a ton of money to fix it. And an even crazier thing is the front screen. If you replace the screen yourself, let's say you just buy the screen on eBay, you fix it. For some dumb reason, I know why Apple did this, it's only for them to make even more money off it. They tied the home button and Touch ID to the screen itself. So before they didn't do that, they tied it to the logic board, but now they tied it to the screen. So if you replace the screen, Touch ID and the home button will not work. And that's what happened with my iPhone 7. Luckily, my iPhone 8 still works, so I don't have a problem with it, but it's still kind of crazy that that's the case in my opinion. So the repairability of this phone, if you plan on getting one to fix it, you will probably be suffering and sacrificing some things in order to make it fully functional, in my opinion. And that's kind of important when you're looking at phones and talking about the used market, because yeah, some phones are much easier to fix than the others, and this is no exception. Now, the biggest thing I kind of want to hit on at the end of this video is they're still being sold at the Apple Store for $599. So they did drop the price down a little bit when the newer iPhones came out. And even last year, they were selling for around $400 to $500 in the used market, but now you can get them around the $300 to $400 range. So this phone I found really depreciated the most out of all the iPhones that I've tested this year so far. Usually there's like a $50 decline. This one hit about a $100 decline, which is pretty interesting. I don't know why that was the case. And obviously it really depends on the condition and everything. So is the iPhone 8 still worth it in 2019? I will say 100% yes. There's absolutely no reason why you should not get this phone. The only reason maybe you might not want to get it maybe is the repairability, but really other than that, it's not that big of a deal. This is a very tremendous phone. It still has a ton of life left in it, tons of support, performance is amazing, everything like that. Really the only thing I would even consider above this phone would be the obvious answers like the 8 Plus, the iPhone 10, phones like that. But you're going to be paying about like $100 more when you go up to those phones. So it's almost like a whole different price bracket. I will say the iPhone 8 is still a very tremendous phone. Tons of support left in it, tons of performance left in it. And there's really no reason not to get it. There's nothing that stands out to me to tell you not to get this phone. So if you want to pick one up, like I said, the used markets are available. eBay, Craigslist, all these other places you can get them at. But what I would recommend you doing is getting a certified refurbished. This way you can actually get a warranty with them. They're super easy to get. They're all on Amazon that I link. And if you have an Amazon account, obviously you can buy it because it's on the Amazon website. So what I'll do is I'll link the cheapest certified refurbished iPhone 8 that I find on Amazon, and I'll link it straight up in the description as the first link. If you plan on buying an iPhone 8, definitely buy it through that link so you can actually help out the channel too. Every single person who buys something through that link, it actually comes back to the channel so we can make more videos like this, get more phones, do more giveaways, things like that. So it'll mean so much if you guys could get that. Dude, if you even want to buy another phone, use that link. Even if you want to buy anything, just bookmark that link and just buy things through that link so then you can help out the channel. It doesn't cost you any extra money and we really appreciate it. But that is pretty much it. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, leave it down in the comment section below. Let me know how many of you guys own iPhone 8s. Let me know what you guys think of the iPhone 8. Do you think there's a phone better out there for the price? Let me know in the comment section below. Hit that like button. That don't mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber we get really does count, so it would mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I would really, really appreciate if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.